Yeah. You gotta work. You gotta work, grind, shine, it's mine. Gotta show everybody it's my time. Getting here, you gotta work, grind, shine. Never mind who talking down, cause they lie.
Welcome to Let's Talk with Carl Lee. Join Carl alongside frequent co-hosts Lisa Odie and Hollis Lewis as they explore dynamic conversations with guests from all walks of life. Let's Talk is proudly brought to you by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. Visit frankwalkerlaw.com. The conversation starts now. This is Let's Talk.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carl Lee, and I have my co-hosts Lisa Odie and Hollis Lewis in the building.
Hello.
Guys, I just I was in US Bank Stadium for the Vikings draft pick, and it was one of those kind of things like we didn't get a chance to pay close attention to every single one of the drafts. And actually, literally, it took just to get through the first round. So really, we only really covered the first round. And then we were we were out of the place. But so how did you all feel? I don't know if this question is your team draft picks or the draft as a whole. How did you see it? I thought it was from my perspective, I thought it was cool, but it was, it was busy for me. So,
sure.
I can't even imagine the dudes who are taking part of the draft and all those kind of things. But it was okay to me. I mean, it was it's getting to a point the draft is the draft is the draft.
Sure. Hollis?
I mean, excuse me. This is probably the first year I watched pretty much every single round.
Oh, okay.
So I watched pretty much from start to finish. We'll talk about Shedeur Sanders later. But I thought it was pretty good. And I thought, again, this was not an exciting draft. There's not a bunch of star power in this draft. It was kind of Shedeur and Travis Hunter. And that was pretty much it as far as star power is concerned. But I thought, overall, teams did a good job because there was not a bunch of star power in addressing needs, right?
Yes.
You've seen a lot of O linemen. You've seen a lot of D linemen.
Yes.
You've seen a lot of sort of the non-sexy football positions go early and often. I mean, it was a plethora of offensive linemen, tight ends, like I said, defensive linemen. So I thought teams did a good job of overall just pretty much. It wasn't too many crazy things happening. It wasn't something that made you necessarily scratch your head per se. Obviously, there were a couple, but I thought teams did a good job addressing their individual needs.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to sum it up is what Hollis just said. I mean, I do think there was an emphasis on the trenches.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
for sure.
People were shoring up their offensive line and their defensive line this year. And a lot of it had to, attributed to the fact that it was a relatively weak quarterback class. Other than, you've got, of course, Cam Ward and what was it, Jackson Dart, I think, first round. And so other than that, it wasn't a real sexy kind of draft, but it was solid. I mean, I think that it kind of followed, other than the Sanders slide, and like you said, we'll talk about in a minute or so. Other than that, it kind of went with, the deep and strong running backs, the tight ends, the offensive tackles, the things that teams met their needs with.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask a question to both of you all's analysis of the draft, and I'm wondering, and I said this earlier today, I feel like the running game is on its way back, and to the fact, you start looking at running backs, you start looking at offensive line, defensive line. All of this, to me, signals we got to have an offensive line, not necessarily to throw the ball, but to do what? But to run
the ball.
We need defensive linemen, not just the pass rush, but to be able to play the run. Is the NFL on a swing? Is it swinging back to the running game?
I would say yes, and I provide you with a couple reasons. I think number one, when you look at the makeup of a lot of defenses, you don't have the big, Michael Singletaries. You don't have those big girthy linebackers or those defensive linemen. You have really what we maybe be considered like a safety back in the day is playing middle linebacker or Will or Sam. So I think what's happening is that, number one, I think OCs are seeing that, hey, we may be able to, have a lane in running the ball. And number two, I don't think it's sustainable that you can have a quarterback to do all that at that level, right? The quarterback can't be responsible for running because like I said, we'll talk about it later, but there's only so many elite athletes that can actually do this, and I mean at a high level, right? If you look at the quarterback who got drafted, Milroy from Alabama, I mean, no disrespect, but I had him pegged. I thought he was going to be a running back. Sure. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe a wide out because, he's an athlete. He was not a great college quarterback. He was really good, but not what I would project as an NFL quarterback. But teams have to take that draft pick now because you need the athletic guy. So to answer your question, I think it's swinging back to running backs because that way you can take the pressure off your quarterback. You don't necessarily need a quarterback who can do it all, who can just focus on that position.
Okay, I got a question to that. Do you think that speaks to I'm gonna call the athletic quarterback being who can throw and run? Is that part of that change too?
You have to be.
Okay.
Like if you can't do both, like I told you, like when you talking about those, when you talking about the Mahomes, the Josh Allens, the Lamar Jackson, the Jalen Hurts, the Joe Burrows, you have to be that.
Yeah.
You can't do both, and you can't just be the pocket guy neither. You got to be able to have some wiggle to you.
So could a Tom Brady draft pick be possible?
I mean, Tom Brady's Tom Brady, but I think he still has the luxury of going to the situation that he went into.
Yeah.
If you watch a lot of those Tom Brady clips, he wasn't getting in touch. I mean, he had offensive linemen that weren't like you, and they always had a pretty decent, running back.
Lisa?
Sure. Well, I was just going to say, I think we can thank the Philadelphia Eagles for this rebirth in the running game as well. I mean, they proved they won a Super Bowl with Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
They were the perfect storm.
Yeah.
They came in and they showed other NFL teams, if you have this offensive power, you have a mobile quarterback and a running back that can, run the ball at will, you have a chance to make it to the Super Bowl and find a way to get there.
Yeah, and that's a fact. And the reality of having that is having that quarterback to run, because now you're looking at Barkley, and now you fake it, you bootleg around. Now you get yourself that, because you have to be able to focus on one of those particular guys, and you can't do both.
And now, even to this, it's sort of a strategic advantage because, it's not like back in the day as far as practice schedule. You don't really do a whole lot of hitting in practice no more.
Right.
Like they don't do that. So if you got to go out and you got a 230-pound running back who can run a 4.445 and ain't afraid to stick his head in, I mean, I couldn't imagine tackling Derrick Henry, for 30 plays a game. That's tough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's an issue. All right. So this is a tough question, and Hollis, you sent this in to me. Because I'm gonna give my assessment again. Every draft pick is not. They don't turn out to be what you want them to be all the time. You know what I'm saying? And so to your question about who won the draft, I don't know yet. I don't know until, because there's somebody who needed depth. There was somebody who needed somebody to come in and play right now. The question would be, did I secure that depth? We may not see it because maybe somebody doesn't get hurt. You look at that guy, that position that you needed, let's say quarterback, we won't know until they get there. Right. So I really don't think, and I think the draft itself is an overhyped kind of a thing because almost everybody's kind of really guessing.
Well, I mean,
I know the science behind it.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I'm just saying as far as on draft day, who do we think won it? Obviously, the time will tell, for sure.
You told me that the Vikings were like 20. or somebody told me that the Vikings gave me the number. I don't even remember who it was. Somebody gave it to me and they said the Vikings were like ranked 28th overall in their draft picks.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna try to challenge that, but I'm gonna say I think that the Vikings, what they did do, what a lot of guys were talking about, was they did go after some things that they really needed. So now my question to that is, does that mean that that means Elisa's not going to be that good at the position she's playing? Hollis, does that mean you're not going to be that good at the position that you're playing? Or how do you
think
assess
it too far ahead? I'm just talking about just for the draft. Just who do we think won it? Time will tell. We don't know.
Yeah,
You know
I mean,
what
it's like going to a restaurant.
Yeah.
You've ordered your food, and,
we don't. It looks good.
The menu said it's going to be
I
this,
guess
this, and this, but the meal may come out completely different.
I'll give you credit for that, and I'll take the blame on that because for me, I already have a chip on my shoulder with the draft, right? And all the science that people say that goes in it, and all that kind of stuff. I think that's. I don't know if that really works because there's too many players that they have missed. There's too many players that they didn't take. That
what other system could you implement that would be
I don't know.
better?
I can't say that. I don't have.
It's just a guessing game at this point.
But what bothers me though is how they continuously make this we've done all this work, we've done all this study, and I'm not saying that they haven't.
Right.
But own it when you're wrong.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
That's true
Own
too.
it when you're wrong.
I mean, who do you think won?
I mean, who won and lost? I liked what Cleveland did initially and what I thought they were going to do by trading out of that pick. They had a number 2 pick. And I was like, they're doing the right thing because I'm saying for a franchise like that, at this point, you always want to get quality, but you need quantity too if you're like Cleveland, right?
Right.
So them trading out, getting, additional picks next year, getting additional picks this year, I thought they were the ones I'm like, okay, they're finally getting it. But, I mean, I don't know.
Cleveland being Cleveland?
Yeah, you drafted 2 running backs, you drafted 2 quarterbacks, a tight end, and a D tackle. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
And then you could have had Shedeur rounds ahead. So it's, to me, I don't know if it's like I thought they won initially, but they probably end up going to lose. Yeah. To me, it's like, get the O-lineman, get your foundation set, and then kind of go there.
Yeah.
Although, and then people even have questions about Mason Graham. So it's kind of like, I thought they won initially by doing the trade, but they probably end up losing.
Well, I think the Jaguars really benefited from that more so than the Browns did. I mean, like you said, they had that opportunity to take advantage of, and they didn't. They fumbled the ball. They seem to do that a lot. But the Jaguars, I mean, I thought what they did moving, from the 5th spot overall to 2nd to pick up Travis Hunter was brilliant. I think that was a good move on their part, and kind of a surprise. But I thought that was probably
he addresses a need too.
Yes,
on both sides.
He definitely addresses a need.
And I really, 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 really think that he can play.
Definitely.
I really do think he's that good of a player. I'm not sure if he'll play both positions, but I think that there's an opportunity for him to step in every now and then if need be.
But where does he step in at? Where does he start?
I think my thoughts is I think he should go to the defensive side, but I think that they're going to start him on the offensive side. That's what I think. Because what do you want? You want to score points. You know what I'm saying? And if he's a guy that can get you some of that. And
it's Trevor Lawrence is there too, and he needs weapons.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that you start him at the O side. And if we run into a situation where we need him to shut somebody down, team that might have a couple of really good receivers or whatever, now maybe we can send him over to the defensive side.
Right. Well, I'll tell you this. This was pretty interesting. I found this. But if they considered him to be a starting cornerback rather than the offensive side of the ball, then that would be the biggest draft of a non-quarterback position since 1967.
Wow.
And that's like a year before I was born.
Yeah,
so.
that's wow.
It's been a minute. So, I thought that was pretty impressive. That was historic.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Highest drafted cornerback ever, or not ever, but since 1967. So that's a period of time.
I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have thought like that. That would have never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
So let's jump before we take a break. Let's jump. And I'm not jumping too far. The prank.
Oh.
The prank call.
Oh yeah.
Now, there would be nowhere in my mind, nowhere in my lifetime,
I know,
would I think somebody would sit at home and think about it and say, you know what? What if we just fake this call and call? One, how do you get a number? You know, how do you get that?
There was a story to that, right? Like, Dad left an iPad unlocked that had. Like,
I didn't see that.
Some numbers.
Dad, his father is a coach for the Falcons.
Yeah.
So
I knew that.
He's a defensive coordinator, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I get it. I didn't get that. But still, you're looking at this number and you're like thinking, okay, I'm going to call Hollis.
And he's 21 that did the prank too.
Come on,
he's not
man.
a kid.
No,
is he 21?
21.
I thought he was a
grown man.
teenager.
But the fact
that makes a difference.
The question is like what should happen? What should be the penalty for that? Or should there be one?
Well, I will put this out there because I really think this is important. I know that Shedeur has been getting some bad press for personality things and just his presentation and the interviews and stuff. So I know that's out there. But the way he handled this whole situation was pretty classy. He came out with a statement and pretty much, part of it, I'm not going to read it word for word, was, he said, of course, I feel like it was a childish act, but everybody does childish things here and there. So I felt like, that was kind of a nice way of saying, I know you made a mistake and everybody makes mistakes. So I thought the way he handled it was pretty professional.
Good.
I think that's huge.
But what should be the punishment? Should they fine the Falcons? Should the coach be punished? Obviously, they can't punish the dude who did the prank.
Why would they punish the coach though?
Yeah,
you left your iPad iPad unattended.
I think that's a team coach situation.
Yeah.
The person who makes the call, I think now you.
Well, I'm going to say one more thing, and I promise I'll be quiet.
No,
but the NFL, okay, because we know this particular call has been publicized, right? Because it involves Shedeur. But the NFL confirmed to CNN just I think today that they're looking into additional prank calls that happened with other draft hopefuls during this same period of time. So it wasn't just an isolated incident. It was something that had happened during the draft more than once. So it's an issue. It's not just this issue. It sounds like it's an overall issue they need to solve the problem.
All right, so answer me this question. Like, you're sitting home. What makes you think like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna make a prank call and call somebody to act like they're getting drafted in a certain round. Like, why? Why would you?
But that's like the nature of what kids do now. They go
but
get
to your
attention.
point, 21.
Yeah.
To your point, he's 21.
But what I'm saying is like they get attention. You post it online. You get a bunch of hits. Mm-hmm. My question is, what should happen, or is there something that should happen? Should the coach be punished? Should the team be punished?
Okay, well, let me ask you this.
I don't think the team.
Should be punished.
Why?
But I think the coach. I think the son is. I think he's a grown man. So I don't think it's if it's a kid, then the parents are accountable. If it's an adult person making that call,
you have team equipment and somebody breached team equipment that you left unattended. That's your fault.
That's my fault.
So the coach should be punished. So he should be suspended or fined.
So what about the other prank calls?
Well, we don't know the details of the other pranks. I'm saying we know the details of this one, that his son got into his unattended iPad.
I would find the coach. But I got to do something to the person who actually made the call.
But you don't have authority over
Shedeur, though.
You don't have any. What I'm saying is like,
that could be which Shedeur and Dion, they're not gonna touch that.
Right. But what I'm saying is you have no authority over the person who did it. You have authority over the person who allowed the breach to happen. So that person has to be punished. That's sensitive, quote unquote, sensitive information that you left just unattended. Like what they tell you at work, you like if you leave your computer, put it on sleep mode so nobody can get into it. Like you got to be punished for that.
I would have never thought in my mind that there would be like people would do this in the during draft time. I would have never.
And I wonder if it's happened in the past. Like, I mean, it has to have happened, and it just wasn't publicized. I think this one was publicized because of the situation of Shedeur.
Yeah. I don't know. I think you got to punish the coach if you ask me. That's just me. Something got to happen.
The 21-year-old has to be accountable.
How?
He has
There's
to be
no way
accountable.
to account him.
He placed the call.
He placed the call.
But it's not illegal. It's not like he did some crime.
So what would you think the punishment would be fair for the coach?
Suspension or a fine.
Okay, so if it was a suspension, what are you talking? 2 games, 5 games, a season,
game,
or what?
A game. Maybe $20,000, something like that.
So
15, 10.
Just to make a statement is what you're
Make a
pretty much
statement.
saying.
You got to. Like, if you got this equipment, you cannot leave it lying around.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Lock your iPad up. Simple.
Maybe the kid found the password for his iPad too. Along
Maybe.
with
I'm just saying, you shouldn't be giving out the password.
phone number.
Because what
He's
other
a sleuth.
what other information is in there? You might have information.
Wow.
What I'm saying is this. Here's the problem with that. If you have access, that 21-year-old kid has access to his father's iPad, then he knows who's hurt, who's playing. So you can even start making bets off of this quote unquote insider information. So you have to be punished to curtail any of that moving forward. Yeah. That's going to open the floodgates to a bunch of problems potentially.
All right. Well, I think we only got about 3 more minutes. I'm gonna address something just because we don't even have to have a conversation about it. I'll just kind of speak on it. But if anybody else wants to say something about it, that's fine. So we were at the draft at U.S. Bank Stadium, and Adrian Peterson was there, and he announced that one of the picks took some time to have a conversation and talk to the public and all that kind of thing. And then later on that night, he got arrested for DUI. Allegedly. Okay. And, one of those kinds, being a person who doesn't drink now, but used to drink and drink a lot and have driven with alcohol, it's one of those kind of things that you really don't think about. But one of the things that bothers me, and why I really wanted to say something about it, was because this was something that was, to me, this would be something that you would be proud to have done. And it would be something that you could hold on to forever. And I know that every event, there's always going to be alcohol. There's going to be all of that kind of stuff. And if you're a drinker, you may go too far or whatever. But I think this was one of these kind of situations. This is one of those moments that, as a former player, that you get an opportunity to do that you just can't mess up. And I know, trust me, I know how easy it would be to mess it up. I know how easy it would be if I was back in the day and I was drinking. I know how easy it would be for me to have, go have some drinks and then not thinking about I got to drive my car and go somewhere.
I don't know how you guys feel about this, but in this day and age, there's no excuse to get behind the wheel of a car when and it's alleged. We'll leave that there, what Hollis said. But, there's just so many options. These guys could hire drivers. There's Uber. There's just so many other modes of transportation when you're going to an event like this, and if you're going to be having some alcoholic beverages and, maybe having a little more fun than usual. It's just something that I don't know. There's ways to get from point A to point B safely. More options than you had probably when you were younger.
Absolutely.
There was not Uber.
Absolutely.
There was, maybe a taxi was it. But and I'm sure. He's made it pretty well, right? In his career, he's got probably enough money to hire a driver.
Yeah, without a question.
So why not do something like that for an event like this?
We every time I go to Minnesota, it's a gentleman by the name of Buddy Becker. Who I'll give him a little bit of a shout out, who picks with me all the time. But one of the things that he makes sure that we have is we have somebody who's driving us. We typically don't drive anywhere after a signing or get to the signing or coming back from a signing or an event or whatever. You're never going to be drinking, or you're never going to be driving. You know, even there'll be guys who will pull up to his house, park, get in the limo, and go. You know, because it's just not, at this point in time, it's just not worth that type of a risk. You know, so Hollis, I don't think you're going to say anything.
I know, like, for situations like this, it's just like I'm cautious not to comment just on brewing legal battles because I just don't know the details. And I think in our culture, we've gotten a little bit, you know, irresponsible just making all these broad assumptions when there's an allegation related to a criminal charge. But I think all the points are valid, and just as the bigger lesson, you know, don't drink and drive.
Yeah.
It ain't worth it.
Which is at this point,
you're right.
It's really simple at this point. You just should not. And, you know, and again, I can confess that I have done it way more times than I probably should have. But
and when you're in a position like he is, when you have the name and
yes,
you know, they're watching for that. I mean,
that part too.
Yeah, that's true too. All right, we'll take a break, and ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back.
Let's face it, bad things happen to good people. Seriously injured in a car accident, trucking accident, or even wrongfully arrested. Life happens, and when it happens to you, you will need sound legal advice and aggressive representation. That's when you call attorney Frank Walker at 304-413-0179. That's 304-413-0179. Lock it in your phone, text it to a friend. 304-413-0179. Or visit online at attorneyfrankwalker.com.
Let's Talk with Carl Lee is proudly presented by attorney Frank Walker. Visit frankwalkerlaw.com. Share your thoughts, ask questions, or suggest topics on our Facebook page. Just search for Let's Talk with Carl Lee. And don't forget to like the page to join the conversation. Catch past episodes anytime at WCHSnetwork.com/Let's Talk. And tune in Thursday nights at 7 or Sunday evenings at 8 for Let's Talk with Carl Lee. Now, back to the conversation.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and I purposely tried to give us the last half of the show to potentially address maybe the biggest elephant in the room in I don't know how long. So, Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah.
Was considered one of the best players in college football.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to the draft. He's expected to go somewhere probably early in the first round. He ends up going into the 5th.
Yeah.
And as a player, as a former player who has been in the draft, it's probably, well, I won't even say probably, it is the hugest drop of any player in the draft that I have been a part
based
of.
on his projection.
You know, yes, based on his skill set, his projections, and all of that. And one of my concerns with that is who he is, who his dad is. But on the flip side of this, there were straight up conversation or statements that he made that I feel like put him in a situation for ownerships, you know, for the people who own the teams, for the individuals who are drafting him, like, you're not going to be bigger than the NFL.
Mm.
You know, I just feel like the NFL felt like, because you can't play in the NFL without some kind of confidence.
Sure.
You know, I tell people, like, for me, during or after, don't consider. Don't say to me I was an okay NFL player, because okay NFL players do not have my resume.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not a Hall of Fame player because I don't have that resume. You don't get the opportunity to take action on this skill set player who's supposed to be a first round player. There's zero chances of him dropping to the fifth round. There's just no way, unless somebody, a group of people are saying, no, we're not going to take him. Hollis, if I don't take him,
Yeah.
and he's still out there, you're going to take him. You skip him, there's no way Lisa's not taking him. He's too good of a player. Somebody had some conversation and say, we're going to show them that you're not going to be bigger than the NFL.
See,
I know
I
you know.
don't think it's that deep.
I don't.
I really don't. It's the same
Help me.
conversation we had about Dak Prescott, right? Because of what we're saying, if the analysis is saying, and again, and I'm not even going hypothetical. I'm not going theoretical. I'm just going on what I see. We look at the top 5 quarterbacks over the last several years in the NFL. Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, Hurts, Burrow. They're all elite athletes. Elite athletes playing the quarterback position. They have the ability to not only scramble and run and do all the thing and make all the throws. You can make design runs with each of them. And we've all seen all 5 of those quarterbacks win games with their legs. So the model, the mode, the modern quarterback has changed. And
I agree.
he doesn't necessarily fit that model. Again, these are guys that are 6'3", 6'4", 4'5", 4'4", 4'3", 4'2" guys, right? Who can throw, who can run, who can do all the things, right? And he doesn't fit. He's a throwback quarterback, 6'1", 210, not fast, right? So again, I'm saying Hollis Lewis, he was my second quarterback off the board. If I'm drafting, he doesn't get out the second round. Out the first round. He definitely doesn't even make it to the second round because I think he still's pliable. He can play. But I'm thinking for a modern quarterback, some teams just said, look, we're looking for an athlete. Hence why Milrose out of Alabama was drafted ahead of Sanders. How does that happen? Albeit that he's an elite athlete. And you made the statement, again, going back to Dak Prescott, you wouldn't have gave him the money. You would have gave him up. Why? He's not an elite athlete. And we don't think in this mode of football where you got defensive lineman Ed Rogers running 4.3s and 4.2s that he can get away from anybody. And my last point, I'll be quiet.
This was live TV. I really wish this was live TV because the faces are awesome.
My last point. Some guys help themselves playing in the bowl games. Other guys hurt themselves playing in the bowl game. And Shedeur Sanders probably hurt himself playing in that bowl game, taking all those sacks and showing them he couldn't get away from that level of defensive linemen and edge rushers. So again, Hollis Lewis, me playing GM, he's coming off the board. But I could see why teams were just like, in addition to all the off-field stuff, I'm strictly talking on the field.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You want my
Miss
theory?
Lisa? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm totally on board with Hollis about the physical attributes.
Yeah.
You know, all of the this arm strength is questionable, right? And just the mobility. Okay.
Yeah.
So we can see that. I'm definitely with you on that. But I think there were 3 reasons. And I think
Okay.
that was one of them. I do think that was one of them for sure. I think the pre-draft process that he went through, you know, he kind of decided, like you said too, Carl, to a degree, I agree with what you're saying, that he did think he was bigger than the NFL because he felt like he didn't have to participate in the combine activities, the field things that they all do. You know, Cam Ward did, Travis Hunter did. So why did he feel like he didn't have to do that? Okay, so that's number 2. And then, of course, number 3 is the one we all know. And that's, of course, you know, his father's influence. He came out in interviews before the draft even started saying things like, well, there are certain teams that I want my son to go to and certain teams I don't want him to go to. That hurt him. I don't think he meant to hurt his son, but inadvertently that hurt him in the draft, and that caused the slide. I think those three things.
I can go with that process there. When Deion says, and this is not Shedeur's issue.
No.
This is Deion's issue.
Right.
Deion is sitting there coming off of being the best DB potentially ever in NFL history. And there is this confidence that Dad had.
Sure.
But I'm not even sure really in some of the things that Shedeur was saying that Deion said. I don't even know if Deion said some of the things that he said. But I think Deion's making the case about there's teams that he won't play for. Dude, you can't pick that.
But some people say, well, Arch Manning did that with Eli Manning.
They might. And they'd be fair. They'd be fair. But you're Deion, and whatever the reasons are that it was okay for Manning to say it, but it wasn't okay for Sanders to say it, that's a whole nother show. Okay?
It ain't really a whole nother show.
Well,
it's on the field.
It becomes
on the
field.
And I think that's what we all skipping.
Well, and here's the thing. If you say it's on the field, he's gonna get on the field as a 5th round.
Maybe. It's 100 quarterbacks in that room. Good Lord, Browns.
It's
the most Brown thing ever.
If he's going to be the guy, well, let me just say that. I don't want to say he's going to be the guy. But if he is the guy, he should come out of that battle with quarterbacks, and be the guy.
He'll be okay if he's what they purport him to be. He'll be okay.
And I think
he'll just have to earn it.
He'll rise to the top of that.
I'm going to go on the record. Okay? I'm going to go on the record. I'm going to think this is going to be 25,000 times harder for him to do. I'm not saying he can't do it. But because this is all the talk. This is going to be all the talk. All the talk is going to be on him. Now, he may like that, and that he might use that as
like motivation.
Motivation.
But dude, when you're not the first guy, second guy, and you're going into camp as a 5th round pick, 7th round pick, and there's all these guys that's in your position. You're going into camp
as last on the depth chart.
You are last on the depth chart.
Yeah. Just going in.
And does it fuel you? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But there's going to be guys that have a better resume than you. Now the question will be. I was going to say.
Joe Flacco, of course.
I'm going to say. There may not be a quarterback that's going to be on his team that he would have to beat out that will have a better resume than him.
Nah, Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco's there. Kenny Pickett. I mean, those guys who played in the NFL.
They've been around a minute.
Yeah. But my other theory though was just that maybe the NFL just did this to make us watch the draft.
Oh, because we wouldn't even watch the raggedy draft. Because again, they traded out. They could have got both of these guys, and they could have wrapped this up in the 1st and 2nd round. Got who they wanted and got really the same result, right? Yeah.
So maybe they was just that's why they just pushed him back and said, well, we got to get somebody because the NFL draft it was more viewers than that than
exactly
the Lakers Minnesota game.
Okay.
People wanted to see where he landed. Seriously.
Okay. Lisa, did you have something?
Oh, I was just going to, I'm cracking up at what he's saying about the raggedy draft. But the other part of it is, I saw people on social media that never even follow football that were watching this. They were watching round for round to see where he landed.
I think they said that there were more people continue watching 2nd, 3rd, 4th,
dude,
and
I watched
5th.
Every round. I've never done that. I've been a football fan my whole life. I watched every single. I was ESPN just watching every.
Right.
And by the time he got drafted, I was like, man, I'm just gonna ride it out. I done already watched it all, so I might as well go to the end.
and here's the other thing. Has anybody really seen like Shedeur has never really looked like he was upset. Dion really has never looked like he was upset.
Maybe they were a part of it. Maybe it wasn't planned.
Well, I'm just saying. No. Well, here's what I think.
Upset.
Here's what I think. But here's what I think. To the degree in which I think Dion would have gone for his son to go from 1 to 5th round, where the issue is going to show up is in the money.
Well, that ain't the issue.
No. Wait. No. They don't need no money.
Yeah,
that's not. But.
I mean, we all need some money. But
no.
They don't
it's not
need
about
it.
They're
need.
okay.
It's not about
They got
need.
generational money.
It's
They're
not
good.
about need. It's about being the guy.
Well, let me ask
See,
you.
in the NFL, dollars matter.
But let me
not
ask you this.
necessarily to anything. But how you gonna get more money than me? Because I came in before you, and I'm playing. That's how the league
Well, he
is.
ain't gonna get them, but it's all set. So
It is.
He ain't gonna
Right.
get them. So let me ask you this. Okay, but talking about conspiracy theories, do you think possibly, maybe Dion orchestrated this?
No.
Just what I'm saying is this though, because he's been playing with his dad pretty much his whole collegiate career, pretty much his whole life.
Yeah.
Right. So this would be the first time from out under Dad's wing, and Dad was like, "Well, we got to do something to give him a little." Like to make him face some adversity.
I can see that. I didn't think about it.
That's a good point.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And Dion, and there's so many fake things out there. I fell for a couple of things that were satire or just plain, just flat out lies. But he did go on the interview, right, with Shedeur. Dion did to Cleveland after he was drafted.
To Cleveland?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there were things out there, floating about in social media saying things like, well, he went up there to tell them, his son wasn't going to play second to any quarterback. No, that wasn't how it went down. He actually went up there and just said, thank you for drafting my son. So, I mean, to me, he's already kind of like accepted that my son's got to go up here. He's got to show them that he deserves to be here and show him what he's made of and find a way to start. I mean, I think he's kind of accepted the fact and he knows. I think he's seen the error of his ways to a degree.
Dion?
Yes, Dion.
Yeah. And poor Shilo, his brother, I don't know if he's going to go nowhere.
Yeah.
I know. He kind of dropped his dad as an agent, didn't he? He said he was terrible. I think he said that.
Yeah.
Dion is like he doesn't have any he doesn't. I don't want to use this word. I was going to use respect, but that's not right because he is definitely respectful.
He's respectful.
Yeah, he's 100% respectful. But what he buys into everything that he believes though.
Right.
When he believes in something, he is locked into it, and you can't bring him out of it.
Yeah.
You think he's not going to go shut somebody down. When he says he's going to shut somebody down, right? He's probably likely going to shut that dude down.
Right.
In this situation, I feel like he 100% buys into Shedeur. Like he thinks he's that.
That's his son.
Yeah. But I'm saying he's looking at him beyond son. He's looking at him as football player, as quarterback, and seeing him as like he
could be the one.
He is the next great thing.
Yeah.
You talked about the metrics, his size, and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
What I like about him is I like his I can't say I know his work ethic, but the work ethic that I believe that he has in him and the confidence in which he has. I think his confidence to speak it, you can't speak like your dad. You can't say some of these things that you're saying because you're disrespecting what the league is. And you probably should just get in and then let your game speak for itself.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because we've already had Dion. You're not him.
Yeah, see, I think that's kind of, maybe a different conversation, but that's kind of what I thought too, is that maybe, to your point, Dion sort of jumping the gun in some of the things that he's saying because he's saying it as though it's him.
Him, yes.
Right, right.
But, Deion Sanders, in my book, is the greatest athlete ever.
Yeah.
He's the greatest athlete ever to, put on any uniform. But so you can't necessarily have that same bravado for your son because your son ain't you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like I said, I would have picked him in the first round, but I understand why teams wouldn't. I get it. I get it. And I think too many times when we have these conversations, we'll go to race, we'll go to dad, we'll go to bravado, we'll go to this. Well, just on the field, I can understand why they wouldn't.
Right.
And you know what I'm saying? And so now he's in a position which I think, like I said, again, he can rise to the top. Now, whether Cleveland is the spot you really want to be at, now
that's another thing.
That's another thing because that seems like a very dysfunctional franchise, even judging from kind of the moves that they made this year. Hopefully they got a long game that they are planning to, right this ship because, I mean, like I said, when you got you literally have 5 quarterbacks in a quarterback
that doesn't make sense.
Insanity. And you probably have the worst contract with Watson ever in the history of sports. So it's like it's just one thing after another.
A graveyard up there, don't they? They have somebody's decorated their yard with all of the quarterbacks that have been a part of the Browns.
And even another point to that is like when you got Gabriel, he was your first round draft pick. So to the point when you're talking about in practice, you got to give him the reps.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You at least got to start. Now, again, not to say he'll hold his position, but when you're coming into the mini camp and when you're going into the official camp start to the 2025 season, he got to get those third team, second team reps because he's the investment, right? So you're really starting from behind the 8 ball. You really got to really be locked in because being a quarterback, and if you're not in the first and second team, if you're in the third or fourth team, bro, you just ain't getting reps.
Yeah.
And it's hard to sit back there when you just ain't getting the opportunity.
And I think the reality of the 5 QBs, which is crazy. The order is really going to dictate a whole lot of things right out of the chute.
Yeah.
And then the first preseason game. Okay, so now there's going to be a couple quarterbacks not going to play.
Yeah, Watson's he already not playing, so it's going from 5 to 4.
Yeah, so 4. You're not going to play 4 quarterbacks in a game
in a preseason.
No, you
maybe 2.
You're going to probably play 2,
and
maybe unless you're going to do quarters. Which, bro, you ain't got enough time in the quarters. You might get one. You might get one series, maybe 2 series. Yeah, that might be the max. That ain't enough. So now you're talking about a half. So you got a quarterback for a half. What does he look like?
Yeah, although, I would say in this situation, depending on how they do it, because you don't necessarily need to see Joe Flacco. We know what he can do. He's accustomed. You don't need your... So you really need to see, who you really need to see is Kenny Pickett. That's who you really need to see. If that guy can be my backup or not, or he got to go.
The other piece to what you're saying, you get a quarterback at the 5th round, he ain't your guy. He's not your starter. He's
not your projected starter.
He's not your projected starter. He's the guy that, he might make the team, and he could be,
expendable.
He could be expendable.
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to do that with him, though.
No, I don't think that's what's going to happen. Yeah. But if you're 4, where are you now? Because you're at the bottom. Shedeur's behind you. You already know that ain't. There's something magical sitting there.
Yeah.
So now you're 4, and you got 3 more guys ahead of you. Who are you? How many times you gonna have to? That's a big task. Yeah, that's a huge task. You got to get on the field and you got to show it out.
At your limited reps.
With limited reps.
Yeah, so whatever you do get, you got to be ready to go. So it's like, again, you cannot be, in which I think he'll probably be okay. I don't think he's going to live in his head. I think he'll just say, hey, whenever it's my turn, I'm going to show out and show up. So I think that's what you have to do, because the moment you start to doubt yourself, the moment you start to get in your head, you're done.
See, I'm scared. I'm scared of the opposite. I'm scared of the conversation of talking about getting in, like I need to be in. Let's say you go to the first preseason game and you don't play, okay? and guys they play pretty good. One might not play really well. Is there conversation? Because where's the media going? They're coming to you.
Yeah, they're coming to you.
But I don't think you can. I mean, hopefully he'll have a PR rep, and you can't do that from that spot. Like from that spot, this is work your way up spot. So you can't do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
but to your PR
what I'm
guy, to your PR guy
Or lady. Yeah.
Here's the problem with that, Lisa. In my mind, Dion is out there
Sure.
now. He may because he's been pretty quiet. In my mind, I think he's been pretty quiet at this point. I just don't know. Confidence is a good thing, and it's beneficial. But you can't throw it out there against teammates like I should be in front of Hollis.
That's a fact.
And I think that's a tough thing.
But even to the Dion, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I'm saying even to the Dion point, Dion has got a whole program he coaching. He ain't gonna have time to be around like that.
Good point.
I really don't understand how he would even be that intimately involved in this. Maybe making a phone call, watching, but you know how it is during the college season.
Yeah.
You gotta watch.
There's a private plane waiting on it. There's a private plane waiting on it.
I know, but I'm just saying how involved can he possibly be?
That's true.
Yeah, that's a good point. I want to go off the topic of Shedeur just for a second.
Okay.
This is just something that popped into my head, so I was going to run it by you guys. But this was the first year of the collegiate national playoff when we had 16 teams rather than just the last 4. Right? I'm just curious to think if Colorado would have been a part of the conversation of making that playoff and maybe making maybe winning a game or two in their run, would it have been different for Shedeur? Rather, I mean, if they would have been able to prove, I'm curious to think how many of these players they've drafted were a part of the playoff scenario.
I mean, that's actually a good question. I don't know if it would have made a huge difference. I think to the point, it was probably, again, I'm not playing, conspiracy theory, but it could have been some collusion in addition to his measurables and different things like that on the field. So I don't know. I don't think it would have played that much different unless you win like a national championship.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, looking at him like, okay, did he have the leadership skills to be able to take his team to the playoffs and scene and be able to do the things that he needed to do to win and help his team be successful? He didn't do those things. They ended up in a bowl game, right? That he ended up they lost, right?
Yeah, lost really bad.
Really bad.
Really bad.
So that could have hurt his stock.
I think it did hurt his stock.
Yeah, and there's a very very valid point of just seeing him in the bowl game and
under pressure.
But long after that, there was all this conversation about how great. Now, what I will say is the people who were making those conversations, they weren't ownership.
No.
It wasn't ownership.
No.
So to from your side of it, Hollis, like ownership never really said. They never spoke out.
They never do, though.
No, they never do. But the conversation of where he was going to go, I think, came from the same places that they always came.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is like, okay, what happened? There had to have been some conversation.
Well, they said the interviews were really crucial.
That's what I heard.
They said he just did not do well.
And now imagine him sitting in there and you having a conversation with him, because it's going to be all me.
Yeah.
All that you talk about I'm going to respond to you as all me. Now you management, you ownership, you probably are not liking that.
That's what I'm saying. If again, I don't know, but if the interviews went left, in addition to the tape that you had, in addition to, again, I'm not saying
I don't think it was one thing. I think it was a combination.
It's a combination.
Of things.
In addition to some of the things that, as far as what you're deeming as what quarterbacks should be able to do at this level now, modern, and then you're looking at the measurables, and then you're looking at everything around it, you kind of maybe fall out of love with it. It's like, because it's like if you're drafting a quarterback that high, you gotta love him.
Well, and you gotta be, and you're listening and watching everything that plays, and everything that everybody else is saying too about you is calculated in too.
And do you think Hollis, you watched the first round on TV like I did. Did you? I mean, he wasn't there. Like he wasn't even before anybody even knew that he was going to take this fall. He wasn't present at the first round. Like, did he already know?
I think. Do you have to be invited?
They had a room ready for him. Like he had his room decorated.
But you don't have
ready,
to. But you can say you're not coming.
Yeah, not coming.
Yeah, you can just.
But why would you do that if you're thinking you're going to go in the first round?
But why would you? But you may know you may not go.
Exactly.
You know
that was the first thing that crossed my mind. And in fact, we were all texting in the group, and I said, "That's why he's not there."
Yeah.
He somehow, I mean, maybe caught wind of it.
And I kind of led off with that, and and again, Hollis doesn't, and rightfully so, doesn't want to get into the conspiracy theory. If he knew.
Well, they talk, don't they? Coaches talk. I mean, they kind of know.
But here's the thing:
the players find out.
Yeah, somebody could have told a coach, and coach could have got to them and told them, like, "Look, this is probably what's going to happen. Just want to give you all a heads up."
Yes.
But once it started happening, I mean, it went. I mean, it just took off.
Because normally, like the first 10 picks are there, like those guys.
Yeah,
and when you saw his empty booth, I was like, "Wait a minute, what's up with that?" And then when they didn't call his name, I
wasn't shocked about them not being there, because on the other side of it, and I think a lot of players that are going to be in that early round typically like to be home with your family and friends, and it's not like you're not going to have a camera in there. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. But
so you'd rather celebrate it there.
I can't imagine Deion missing that opportunity to, his son shine on the stage. And I don't know.
And I say this, and we got to close it out here.
Okay.
But if I could get inside of Deion's mind, and if I was thinking if I were trying to think like him, I don't want to be there necessarily, because I don't want to feel like people thinking that I want my son to have his moment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And because he knows everybody's saying, that Deion is basically running his life and all that kind of stuff.
At this point, even Shedeur himself, he'll take all the air out the room. So it'll all be about him.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll be back again to see you next week.
Let's Talk with Carl Lee is proudly presented by attorney Frank Walker. Visit frankwalkerlaw.com. Share your thoughts, ask questions, or suggest topics on our Facebook page. Just search for Let's Talk with Carl Lee. And don't forget to like the page to join the conversation. Catch past episodes anytime at WCHSnetwork.com/Let's Talk. And tune in Thursday nights at 7 or Sunday evenings at 8 for Let's Talk with Carl Lee.
If you fall, dust it off and get back up on your feet. Anything could be a win, even defeat. They say sugar bad for you, why is victory sweet? Couldn't play with big kids, I had to sit in the street and watch from a distance, but over time I grew. If I put in the work, in no time I'm due. Everything that I worked and prayed, I'm okay. If you ask me, how did I do it, I'm gon' say, you gotta work, grind, shine, it's mine. Gotta show everybody it's my time. Getting here, you gotta work, grind, shine. Never mind who talking down, cause they lying. Don't talk, you gotta work. 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 You gotta work.